Hello, comrades. It's Premier Rever, and I am back at Neuve Revergrad for another Saturday summary. The day we catch up for those of you who didn't watch every minute of every episode, which is completely understandable for different reasons. In any event, we are here in Neuve Revergrad, and we have gotten people in, and we are going to continue to get people in. And if we didn't have so much going on, I probably would have designed some more housing, but at the same time, I think at some point we should ramp up the number of trains that we have servicing people. And speaking of which, it looks like we're awful close on these two trains as far as not having much of a gap in between them, huh? Yeah, they definitely caught up with each other at some point during that loop. So I think we're going to need to get some more people. I did click on this and notice that we have an awful lot of passengers waiting. Yeah, there you go. That's, well, not anymore. All it takes is a train, huh? Well, good. All right, so anyway. So we'll see. We'll keep working on Neuve Revergrad, ramping up the number of people. I did have a question, and it was, how many inhabitants? G Swedish asked. And we are back up to 38,000. Let's see. It's June. I don't know if you, let's see if we look at this year. Yeah, you can see we were down 36,000. And at one point, let's see, can we look at last year? Yeah, last year, well, we were at 36. Man, we really just sort of stayed at 36 for most of last year. But before that, we were up even higher. But now we're up to 38. And if you notice, we only have 41 adults. So, growing is good. Getting these extra houses is built. But it's not like we have a ton of extra people throughout the map to pull in here. So we've also built a couple houses over there at Autograd. I was going to say Autograd Distribution, but in Autograd. And I want to do something a little bit different than I have been. And it's because I got a comment from Mike Gannon, that is, about keep it simple, stupid. As far as the principle goes, he didn't call me stupid, but keep it simple, stupid, as far as our train lines are getting too complex. I even said in the comment or my reply, I don't know that I necessarily agree that it's any more complex than it needs to be, but let's go through it because it's been a little while since I really talked about it, and let's go back to where it all started, I think would be good, which is Old Revergrad. When you remember, if for those of you who watched the beginning of the series, this was our only town, and we had a lone railroad track, this one more or less, this has been modified, but this railroad track, which is now just getting its final stuff upgraded to electrical, even after all this time, we're not fully electrified on this track, and it was supplying things into Kameen. It was also coming over into here eventually, which was where we had our steel coming from and chemicals and plastic and just in general getting supplies to and from. We ended up moving our bricks factory from Old Revergrad up to here, but we were getting gravel. And so we were slowly ramping up this line, one of the two. Now I built a parallel line all the way across here, more or less, but that line just grew until the point that we could export things to Molna. And that was, a good thing to do. We definitely needed to get that done. Now, let's see. Now that I'm just looking, yep, this guy didn't go out there with much. Now, I just want to check on this because it's kind of an issue. We don't have much gravel. We shouldn't need much. As long as we have electrical components and steel and prefabs, we should be good. I don't think they need too much gravel, right, to do these. No gravel at all. All right, so I don't know why he didn't get more done the last time he went out there, but we look like we're in good shape. So anyway, that was our loop. Now, what I decided to do was to make that, in the long run, what I'm calling the corn loop. So really, we just have this, parallel track that runs from Molna all the way down to, where is it, Old Revergrad down there. And at some point, I realized, well, this is where all of our farms would be along here. We have Fieldski up here, and we would have our bakeries right over here. So the bakeries would go on this little extension up to here. Now, once we built that extension, we might as well have looped it all the way around, right? Just so that there was a, more for the bakeries, not so much for the crop. So at some point, you could look at this line as changing from just the corn loop to being bread supply, right? Our bread supply could come over this way if that was the best way to get out and about town and go deliver things. So some of this will rely on the trains being sent in the right area, but at the time, you know, we built a train thing here. We wanted to get trains all built in here. So a lot of this rail, you know, I could even argue to get rid of certain sections of this rail if we don't use it very much, but it was also helpful for other things. So that is sort of to some degree where the bread comes into things, and I'm going to consider this part of the corn loop because at some point I have a pretty, if we don't have enough crops in general, I'm probably going to put at least one farm up here. I don't think I could really get two in, but that would put all of our farms right along this corn loop, right? We'll have more corn here and meat being produced. And then we have these two big farms here, and they would all be able to feed into this loop here, which eventually could come all the way over and supply corn for our clothing. Now, at the same time, because clothing also needs chemicals, I'm probably going to sneak things like the chemicals onto this, quote, corn loop. So it sort of becomes a little bit more of a local supply as opposed to this other loop, which I intend to be. So I built another parallel track along here that I'm calling the supply loop. So eventually everything other than like corn and some, quote, local supply. So if I did, are we on fire over here? Do we have a fire company, I hope? Yes, we do, but we don't have any fire trucks. Are we close enough to this guy, I hope? Where's, yeah, let's see. Are we? Oh, yeah, good. We put it out. But you know what? Let me go take care of this real quick. Let's go put another two. I guess I just must, it wasn't too long ago. We put fire trucks and everything. All right, so let's come down here real quick and take care of that. Even though we don't have any people here, we'll at least get some fire trucks started on their way. And then we could talk about finding a little bus someplace. Yeah, let's leave that open for half a second. We don't happen to have a little bus in here, no, but we can buy one. Let's buy... This red bus is nice because it's pretty darn fast. So for when you're going a long distance. So not that we need more people coming off of these particular bus stops, but this one looks less crowded right this second. So let's have you go from there to here and just get workers. And I don't think it matters on the drop-off side, but there we go. So let's start him. So at least in theory, we'll have a firehouse. Now that we have the firehouse built, let's just take a look. Oh yeah, that'll cover our farm. I don't think the farm fields can burn. There we go. All right, distracted. Okay, so now have the corn loop. Corn loop extends in down to here. Are we almost? Oh, look, we're done that track. So good. I'll electrify that at some point. We'll have to get all this electrified. All of this is electrified. So we got Drunken Bridge and the massive 4-rail bridge that was kind of unnecessary because we could have just crossed it differently. But I like the way it looks. I think there's a certain odd symmetry. I guess even this way, right? Here, look, it looks like a face maybe, does it? Yeah, see, look, you got like 2 eyes and a mouth that's crooked because he's drunken. No, there. Anyway. All right, so let me go back to what I was saying. What I was saying is that I then had the idea of supplies. Now, one of the reasons for that, and it kind of came up in the end of the last episode, let's go get this guy, and let's replace him with an electric train. Now, I don't know if we're going to have a problems with him being an electric train, but if we open him up, we'll see he is supplying bread or corn to the bread. So he's just going from Fieldski, which is our farms right over there, and he's just coming right up to here. So, but he is not an electric locomotive. So what I would like to do is purchase an electric locomotive. And I guess one of the things about this is, you know, why don't we buy one of these? I'm not sure if I have. 14 million. Here we go. Now, just so you know, in case you didn't know, like don't delete the other train first. And you should be good with keeping the supplies in there and everything else. Hopefully we can get them all on there. Yep. So now we'll take this guy and we'll copy his route before we sell him to this guy. So if you do it more or less just like I did, open this guy up, make sure it copy. We'll get rid of the customs house here. Delete that stop. And then we'll get this guy started. But then he can immediately just go over to the breadstock train station. There you go. One less diesel locomotive. So we should probably go around at some point. I'm going to sell this vehicle. And look, we got the same amount back. Very good. So it's a net not negative, I guess. Oh, no, we got dollars, though. Okay, well, whatever. So it wasn't quite the same because dollars are worth less than, per dollar is worth less than per ruble. All right, there we go. So that should have solved that problem. But in any event, this train is a big kind of slow honking train with all these corn. So I didn't necessarily want them on the same route that we would have all our supplies because of the way the game does intersections. When you have an intersection, it stops trains going in both directions unless you really do a good job of fixing that. Now, do we have? Well, that's not electrified either, is it? Let's take care of that. I'm just going to purchase this because I don't see any easy way to get in here. Really? There we go. You'll do it that way. Yeah, that should be electrified. Yeah. All right, so let's just go ahead and purchase those upgrades. You know what? Yeah, we'll use some rubles up. There we go. All right, so that'll be electrified when we get that done. Or that is done, so that is electrified. Whatever I meant. How are we doing over here? We're still plugging away. I'm not sure why it's taking so long. Make sure he's still assigned a job. Yep. All right, good. So we'll get that electrified, and then this will be our corn loop, and I'm really taking a long time. So here's our supply loop. And again, the supply loop would be able to send things up to Molna for export, which would mean as a general statement, we'd kind of like to end where they start and end by MB distribution, which really doesn't work out that well. But we'll get to a second option in the future. So we have this supply loop that comes through here. And the idea would be that it would go, let me turn around. It parallels this whole track, and it would go to these different distributions. Right, and eventually it's going to come all the way along here. It's kind of have a goofy intersection here to be able to get in and out, but we'll be able to come in and supply, which ends up being Revergrad distribution, old Revergrad distribution, where we can come in here, get the mechanical. By the way, it's not just food; it's all the different supplies they would need for construction and whatnot. But of course, food and those things as well. Meat. I got a meat freezer here. And then they'll be able to come back over here, come all the way around this way on this supply loop. Be able to go into here to give some supplies if they need to. But I'm really we're trying to avoid any distributions in the center of things, right? Like all of these distributions would here's Autograd supply, Autograd distribution. So we would distribute things from the supply loop, and then the supply loop continues on all the way down here, all the way around. Now they can go either direction, right? It's double track, so it doesn't matter whether they go clockwise or counterclockwise. We're going counterclockwise around the loop. And then it would come up to here. Now, I have this going straight because at some point it would be good to build a railroad track over maybe to this Stas-Halles, something like that. But then also, I would consider building a railroad track somehow over this way, which is really probably unnecessarily and a little silly, but we could come like all the way down here and tie back into the supply loop here and maybe even have them be able to go to Molna. That there's no real benefit to this track coming all the way around here, but it is possible, right? Again, I'm not convinced that we're going to do that. So for the meantime, the supply loop cuts around here as a way of looking at it, and then comes back down all the way over here and comes back, and then that's where they can get back over to MB distribution, decide to go sell stuff at Molna, come back over here, and feed back into the supply loop. So again, you can kind of see why with this MB distribution, there's a part of me that wants to have that supply loop just come right on around here and feed back in and then go all the way up and around, right? So that's the supply loop, and it should mostly just have supply trains going to our various distributions. And then one of the things that I've done to make it a little bit more complicated in a sense is that we have these other supplies, right? It's not just chemicals going to the clothing. So we have this wood. So, for example, the wood over here. So the wood would need to come up here, and that would also go on this corn loop, right? So this is not really just a corn loop. It's like a local supply loop. Or and they're all loops because they can come in here, turn around, and go back, right? It's not, I consider a loop really just these two tracks together because they can go this way and come back. Does that make sense? But overall, there's like a bigger supply loop. So anyway, so there's more corn. Say like steel can, just temporarily, we're making some steel here. I think we're still making steel. Yeah, a few workers. And, with making that steel, we can bring that out on this loop for now. But again, keep in mind, this is just sort of a temporary thing. The other steel trains, I would intend that they would come out of here one way or the other and get onto this track here, which is getting back out to our supply loop, right? They go one way or the other once they come out of this center area. And eventually we'd have this track supplying mechanical components. And then eventually, I'd like to even open up this oil field as a possibility with another town to make plastics, because our plastics are, really pretty limited. And we're limited because we only have this one oil refinery. So there's really only so many people that this many oil rigs. I mean, it's a fairly decent sized oil field, but it's really not necessarily enough to really have that much as the way of plastics and fuel and bitumen and all that kind of thing. So anyway, so that's what this track is about. Now, in just in the same sense that this track cuts through, like it really wouldn't necessarily be, quote, part of the supply loop, but it gives a way for these trains to get over to this track and get back out to the regular supply loop at that point. Because remember, the supply loop cuts through here for now, which is this track right here. All right, so there we are. We're kind of up to and covered two loops in a sense. And when you think about it, that sort of supplying everything. Oh, we also have Electrical Town, which is making electrical components and electronics. And they can also get out either which way onto this kind of, I'll call it the middle track here. Can then get out to the electrical supply. And that would be the same idea with Plasticton. And that's another thing. We're bringing plastic and chemicals over here. Both of those need oil. So there's the possibility that we would put plastic and maybe even a little bit of a chemical production here so that we can just take the chemicals from here to there and not have to import them from over here. I kind of want to see how much chemicals we're actually making, but if we don't have enough for our ramped up clothing, then that would definitely increase the number of chemicals that we made over here. Now there's a problem too with that, is that chemicals don't just need the oil, so we'd have to bring a fair number of other things over here to get the chemicals made. But that doesn't have too much to do with railroad tracks at this moment. So then, let me talk about my third loop. The third loop, and this gets kind of complicated in a way, and by the way, I'm not counting the passenger loops yet, right? So when you look at all of this mess, I have a loop in here, right? And right now we only have one train on it. And that train's job, like one of the things that is difficult with this game is balancing out where you just drop off everything that you can to a place. Like I always want these power plants to get the maximum coal, right? That's why I built two extra coal things here. And this train's going to drop off everything it can to fill these two guys up here. Now, once those two are filled up, then it comes over to here, and it's going to drop off the remainder into here. And the remainder is going to go on what I'm calling like, so this is a coal loop, and it does make things a bit more complicated, right? But it's just going to have 1 or 2 or 6 trains, probably at the most ever. It sort of depends on how much it can handle. We can definitely produce a lot more coal over here than we have been. It's going to depend a little bit on our population, of course. But we're doing pretty well. I haven't really paid much attention until the dumb trains went in to try to go to here to get all to the, you know, if you guys watch that episode, I sent trains to the other side of Revergrad, and they decided to come up here and jam everything up. But other than that little problem, I really haven't had any issues over here with this. You know, this guy is just, look, he's empty now. He's making sure this gets topped up, right? So we never run out of coal for our power plants, but at the same time, we're taking any excess and dumping it into here. And then, you know, it's just working beautifully. Now, this here is what I would call the start. Well, it could be the start or the end of the main coal loop. So we'll have this. And just so you know, if things really get busy, I built the extra capacity to fire up this guy so that we could have even more coal coming to a second railroad station so that more rail cars could get in and out of here with coal. And that coal would come along this track, which is the coal loop, right? And again, some of these are kind of construction-y roads, so I know that gets a little confusing. But I'm going to kind of zoom in and show you that this, while it looks like an absolute nightmare, is really not. We have a coal loop that comes up here and then loops around and comes back onto this track, right? So the trains from down there, here he is right here, he can come in here, drop off as much coal as he needs. He can sit there and wait, right? Because we have one train that can be sitting there. We can have 2 trains actually sitting to each one of these. So if these are fully fired up, burning coal like mad, we could almost always have a car sitting here while we had another one unloading. Hopefully it would work out that way. This guy gets on his way, goes back down here. So same thing here. As we fire up this one, I'll get another coal train from down there and bring it around and boom. Now, we're going to build more coal mines. So if you look, and again, don't focus on all the railroad tracks, just these few. Here is a coal loop coming back this way, right? Look, they can come back over here. They can go out this way, right? Over to here. Now this is, I think, was done mostly just for construction purposes. But let's see, so we can come over here, and this is our coal loop. Now I'm not sure what I'm going to do along this stretch, but I don't know that we're going to have too much else coming in and out of here by train. So then picture the coal loop comes all the way over here, follows these roads, right, just to sort of avoid the mountains a little bit, to be a little realistic. Comes into here, and I intend to have a similar system over here where we supply coal to these power plants as the priority. So it'll be a little bit longer drive over to here, drop off the coal. But when they come back, they'll feed some train stations. It sort of depends on how everything, like in this area, that will supply excess coal back over this way on our coal loop. All right, there's the coal loop again, right here. Right, and then they can feed it in. So the trains can actually come in this way, if you look. So now this is, you know, the return of this one. But if we sent a train from Bricksville over there, it could come down here, and it could either loop around and feed into the steel mills if we needed more steel into here, or it could go back and just be part of, you know, it could be part of the whole thing where it just comes over to here and grabs more coal. Well, which I don't really picture that happening too much. I picture coal coming into here, they loop around, come back out, go over to Bricksville, get more coal, bring it into here, because I really think this is going to be our big steel user if we ever get, not steel, coal user, if we ever get this fully fired up. So in other words, we'll have 2 sets where we can have power stations fed primarily, coal loop, bringing the excess coal up to steel, because even though steel is a bugaboo that we never seem to have enough of, it's still, you know, it's still very, you know, critical, but it's not as critical as power. So then we would have this, and then picturing all the trains, so the picture like a similar setup here is that we have on the other side of Revergrad. This would be Bricksville, a town where we have people that do the steel, and then we'd send people up here to the coal mines and whatnot. And there might even be a coal mine or two here, right? And that feeds back into there. And outside of that, and picture all of the, like, I could picture a lot of train traffic, and I just wanted to kind of keep that separate and keep a good steady supply and flow. And when I, thinking about it, I think it's a very reasonable, it gets a little bit busy in here because what's happening here more than anything else, and if you guys look, it certainly seems complicated, but when you think about it, it's really not. Oh, by the way, look, I even have like a bypass track in here, so that if you're on the coal loop, we could send coal just directly on and bypass it. And you say, well, you don't really need that. You could just pass through the train stations. But yeah, I mean, I could just pass through the train stations. But when you're designing all of this stuff, if I didn't leave room for that, would I ever be able to build it again, right? Like, these conveyors all have to get over this stuff. And so if you don't allow for that possibility to get over to here directly and just bypass these steel mills, you just have issues. Now, if you look here, this is a separate loop coming into here that feeds these train stations, right? So the train stations can have stuff come in and out a couple different ways, but mostly they're going to be coming in and out of here, which is our regular supply loop, right? That makes sense? So they can come in and out of each of the steel mills, and then they come back out this way and then go back on their way back into the supply loop, right? So this is really just gathering up the steel, and it's these center tracks. Like, if I could color code everything, it'd be a lot clearer where that would end and start at that point. Now, some of these things that I've built, like where this is attached and this extra train, I don't know that we'll ever use that, right? But I also needed a little bit of this stuff for construction, but we could get a train at that point from here to get over into here, if that makes sense. Like, they could come the other way in a sense, but anyway, I hope that makes sense. And then the passenger loops. We're going to have passenger loops, and they stay separate. And because these other trains are bigger, slower, stop for things, these loops for the passengers are designed to be as efficient as possible with as few intersections as is reasonable. Like, we have one here because we might loop up to here. There we go. See, we don't really want trains back to back like that too much, do we? Yeah, I don't know why they're getting so close right there. Well, you know what? We've already talked about that, I think, in the last video, or maybe it was earlier in this video. I forget. But anyway, so I'm trying to keep this where it's reasonably clean. What happened here? Oh, that's just the turnaround. Yeah, so if they're just dropping people off to this is a coal mine too, which we haven't even fired up, by the way, which can be part of the coal loop, right? So we'll get these guys processing ore at some point here, and they'll be taken by train and around and into here as well. We just haven't really needed it. But expect this to come too. So this is even more coal supply that's kind of even more local, and it would come in here. See how this is all part of this coal loop up into here? And then they would be able to turn around, come back. Well, actually, they would come this way, come around. They could go through here, pick up their coal, come down around here, come back in, drop their coal off. Again, we could, within reason, we can send them any which way. Like, if they come back around here, they could loop all the way through, right? And not even stop at these tracks. I could use a waypoint now that we have them and just have them go someplace else with their coal. But obviously, most likely they'll drop off most of their coal at the steel mill there. All right, I got a little distracted by our loops. But then, see, this is just a passenger loop here where these passengers are going over and coming in and getting passengers from one side of Revergrad. And then over top of this bridge, this is the one we just built recently, we have another passenger loop that comes around here, and we'll get people from the other side of Revergrad. And then here, we just have a loop that's kind of self-contained, two of them, well, one here, right, that just is taking people and hopefully taking them to the things they need, food and some sports and some cinema. And I want to work on this as far as getting it to be a little more efficient, especially on this side of town. But I think the other side of town could use some help too. And then we have the same exact kind of mirrored image thing right over here. So we're not quite a mirror, but very close, where we have this loop that takes people from these train stations, gets them what they need down here. Eventually, when we build radio stations and this other grand stuff, hopefully it'll be close enough to get passengers in there. We might have a trolley that goes around here maybe and moves people from the train stations to the other things. Some of this is going to be a little bit decorative, but there we go. So there's like another passenger loop, just trying to keep them separate so they're not interfering too much with each other. And there you go. So there's the loop that goes and picks up people. Uh-oh. Sorry, guys. I think I did this at last. There we go. So the Friday's episode is ready to go, in case you were wondering. There we go. So there's another passenger loop. So there's the possibility, and here it's sort of a bit of a break right here, right? Because I was having problems with keeping a good steady flow of people. So this is sort of the loop kind of gets broken right here, and these people go into Stalingrad, or the steel mills, and then these people here are going for the coal and the power down here. So I've broken. So this is kind of two separate passenger loops, even though it's a little bit connected. See that? So they can come in here, go around. Because what was happening is we were just getting too much train traffic up this way, and that was causing these trains just to get jammed up. See how they're already kind of jammed up, and that would have stopped this train. And plus, it was taking just going that extra little bit. By the time they dropped off people, we weren't getting almost any to the coal mill. So now that it's just short enough that they should be able to get people to the coal mines pretty regularly and keep that flowing pretty well. So there we go. And we can ramp up the number of people we have here. And what do we got there? Oh, yeah, gas station. Probably not a bad idea. But just so you know, even though that might be picking people up from here, we also have these bus stops. And these bus stops are what is providing people to breadstock over here. So a little bit of an experiment to see how far we could bus people. But the center section is actually taking a lot of the people and sending them over here. So eventually I want to ramp up that and make it a little more efficient. But we're sort of using, to a large extent, we're using all the corn we already have from field ski over there. So that's where I'm really interested in getting, this corn loop worked on so that we can kind of make even more bread. The other side is I think we have enough bread as a general statement, though as we increase our population, that could become an issue. Now, not to complicate things too much further, we do have some chemicals coming up here from over there. So the uses aren't absolutely strict, but the idea is to try to keep enough different tracks that we don't have traffic. And if you noticed, other than our little issue that we had here, which was in the last episode, we really don't have too much traffic in any one area. And this is probably one of the busier things, and this is sort of another cut through, and it is actually part of the supply loop right now until we get this built. It's a little bit too busy with these things coming on and off of it. Now, keep in mind, we may get rid of the plastics thing. We're always going to need some oil export, but it's just a matter of, if you've noticed, we have quite a few trains running around, and you haven't seen any traffic jams. Have you even seen a train waiting for another train? So while this is certainly overkill to some extent, keeping the different trains on sort of their own tracks, separate from the passengers, the biggest thing I've seen in going around here is that we have passenger trains too close to each other, and I'd like to spread them out more. And hopefully we can find a way to do some signaling or just get more trains in so that we don't have gaps and we have good steady flow. So I hope that makes sense. And while I don't doubt that some areas don't look very complicated, I don't know why this hasn't been finished yet. It's kind of a good question. I also want to kind of get a little bit more completed. Like we have this whole railroad track around here to get done. And that'll take a little while. But once we get that done, then I can start reorganizing some of the routes a little bit better and make this where the only trains that typically come in here will be the trains that are picking up stuff in this area. Same thing with like this line. I'd like to get it to where where they're just coming in and out of here on a very limited basis to get steel, to get electronics. So that we have very low usage tracks so that when we ramp things up, like, keep in mind, we only have 2 or 3 steel trains right now. There's going to come a day when we may have 8, 12 steel trains, and they'll be exporting stuff. And, this rail line, which is very low use now, will get very high. And I don't want, passenger traffic on this same thing because it'll turn into a nightmare. So, as I said in my reply to Mike, I'm more than willing to take suggestions if you have an idea of where in particular you think it's too complicated. I didn't mention one last loop that I'm aware of, even though we may... Well, there's a couple other loops. There's this loop. So we have the same kind of thing down here, right, where we have our supply loop cutting through here. That's just a little bypass of the main supply loop, where we'll be able to come in here, either get fabric, get clothing. We'll have passengers. See, same idea, like a passenger loop that's completely separate that goes around town here. Right, comes back out, goes over there, so they're not interfering. Now, this guy and this guy crossing is not exactly the greatest. We might want to consider a bridge right here, one way or the other, over this area. I haven't completed this, but let's just see. Yeah, we definitely might want to consider... Well, actually, yeah, we'll have to say. Let me just... Actually, no. You know what? This guy's going to go over here. See, they're going to be able to come in here and turn and go this way and get into here or something like that. Let's see what happens. But yeah, we want to make sure that this passenger loop doesn't get delayed by all the cargo trains coming through and into here. So we'll see. We got work to do. Doesn't mean we can't do it. All right, what do we got? Are you guys not working? No, you're not. Okay, let's get them working again. Yeah, so that's done. Nope, doesn't connect. Why not? Why don't you connect? Oh, really? Oh, because you got a one-way. All right, let's take care of that. That would have been a problem for this guy coming home anyway. What do we have? Yeah, one way. I wasn't really planning on working over here. And then I realized this wasn't electrified. We'll make that two-way just for the sake of it. All right, so now... Yeah, right here. There we go. All right, so that's that, and then we should be able to send some people in. Yeah, okay, so you guys did the go backwards thing. Yeah, that's electrified already. That's not. And then we want to get somebody on this one. Yep, he made it all the way around here. Yep, go to there. All right, so that should keep them busy for a minute. So yeah, let me know. I mean, I certainly like complicated things. I don't think it's too complicated, though, especially not when you consider future usage. You know, we don't have any corn trains coming over to here yet. We don't have any passenger trains on here. We don't have the supply trains coming into here. And, you know, as we get more supplies and more things going on, I don't know if we'll have more supply trains, but I could certainly see, you know, if we get another oil rig set up over there, we could have more oil trains on our supply loop and so forth and so on. So, yeah. Now, other than that, we have been doing pretty well. Our population has continued to grow. Look, we only have 28, 29, plus 21-year-olds. Oh, look at that. It's gone up this month. So we were all down to 0 at one point. And we're still building some houses. And I definitely want to keep this guy busy if you guys have watched. I'm trying to get... We have a problem over here of not having enough employees because they're getting polluted. And I have a feeling... We were doing fine over here for quite a while. I have a feeling they... I don't want to say nerfed it, but they adjusted the pollution. So I think, oh, yeah, that's not where we're, and I think in the adjusting, I'm not sure if they made it bigger or what they did, and maybe it was just always that way, and I just never noticed, but at the same time, again, yeah, that's all you can do is that one extra footpath. But we're working on the roads, and we're going to get in here. We're going to get some houses. We have this. We have, oh, you know what? We can also, I think we should be able to do more. We got some, yeah, I don't want to build that. Yeah, build that one. Build this one. You can do this. All right, so I got some more parking lots coming in here. Yeah, you can do that, and that, and that. What are you? Yeah, you can work on a kindergarten. All right, so I have some more parking spaces coming in here, so I'm hoping some people will drive up to this part. Oh, you know what? I could have. I'm hoping people could come up to here and drive to this parking lot. We'll get some more steady people. I just want to see if we can get enough steady people up to this power plant to increase it. So, but we need to get these houses demolished, and it looks like, yeah, you know what we need? Don't we have a pollution? Yeah, there's pollution. Few actual pollution. See, it looks like they should be pretty good over here, where they're not so good over here. So, yeah, voltage is fluctuating. I just need to get more people up here, probably in the temporary. Yeah, we should even consider just busing people into here. Let's go do that. Let's just get a bus. It won't be ideal, but we have extra buses. And we'll just get a bus going. This isn't the point of the Saturday summary, but I'm a bit concerned. These bus stops. Yeah, they're kind of over. Yeah, you know what? We'll go to this one. Yeah, we'll just get workers. There we go. So that should get at least a few extra people up to here. But it was, people from here were walking up there and everything was fine. Pollution came in. And I think everything was fine after that, but it's not anymore. So, yeah. So anyway, the other things we're working on was getting all of this electrified. And it looks like he's probably stopped up someplace. No, he's moving. But he doesn't appear to have any supplies on him. Really, you drive all the way up there, so why don't you have much in the way of supplies on you? Are we not getting everything we need? We got more electrical components and steel and panels than we can do with, so I don't know why he's taking... It looks like he's pretty much empty. And look, then he heads all the way back. Like, what is your problem, dude? Is there a reason that you took so little? It just seems like it's taken him forever and a day, and it just shouldn't. And I don't know why he looked like he was going out there with like nothing on him. So we had a little problem where we weren't getting wood into here. Now we should have some buses, and we should see. We got 4 workers, and so we are producing. Yeah, a little bit of smoke coming out. Yeah, we were building some houses over here. Yeah, I mean, we don't really have enough people to move a whole bunch around, so. Yeah, and then the other thing we decided to do, oh, look, we got a technical university with 3 professors. All right, so let's do something here. Let's take this and say, you guys are going to go to work in there. And we only have 25 people in here. That's good. So let's go over and let's see. Do we have a lot of people here? Yeah, 53 professors or college educated, which we're going to about to become. There we go. More than enough. All right, so now I want to take you. I'm just going to fill this guy up for now with professors. Now, how are we doing here? Yeah, 29. It's good enough for now. Let's see how we make out. Good. So that should definitely increase the number of professors we have. As a matter of fact, I even want to kind of turn it down a bit. Maybe some of those people. Yeah, 30 should be more than enough. And that should get us more and more educated over here. And then the other thing we should consider, I'm not going to do it right now, is we could consider putting a dorm or two over here. Whatever they call it, hostel. Yeah, over here we usually you live in a college dorm. That's what they call it. But anyway. All right, good. So that's the other thing we're working on. What else are we working on? Just to wrap this up, I don't like the Saturday summaries to just get too into building and whatnot. It's supposed to be a summary. Yeah, working on building this. Over here, we have this done here. So I would definitely expect to see something happening in this area in the next few episodes where we start, especially because we do have questions about how good our power is. You know, at least getting coal mines enough to run power with people in here. And the thing I'm kind of waiting on is to get this completed. So let's take care of that while we're here. So what I did was I sent some vehicles and whatnot over to here in anticipation of this. Excavator. Yeah, I wish they had a vehicle that would... These bulldozers don't fit in any vehicle that I'm aware of. If you guys know of something, let me know. All right, so let's open this guy and this guy. And where is it? Where is it? We're going to bring them all into here. So let's... Good. So that means we could definitely start planning. I was holding off to get, for getting this done. And then we need to get power over here, but I'm not too worried about that. We can do it paused if we have to. And what this is going to let us plan on our railroad tracks going further. And we'll be able to level and whatnot. This was as far as we could level. Should get us most of the way there between this one being right over here. Let's see, can I zoom in without the clouds a little bit? See what I mean? We should be able to level a large portion of this area. If I have to build another construction office over here, it wouldn't break my heart. But that means we can get all of this designed, or a lot of it designed, get it started, which is pretty big project in its own right. But I don't want to get too many things going. We have a cement and prefabs town, and I think the only comment I got from anybody was going to build the quarries over here, but I think it makes too much sense to build them over here, right where we need the gravel for the cement and prefabs, and we'll just feed that directly into these plants. It'll save us a little bit of training things around. And then whatever excess gravel we have could contribute to construction efforts, and whatever else, we could have a supply train coming out of here for gravel after it gave what it could to the prefabs and the cement. There we go. So we have to electrify this track, but other than that, I think it's done. This part of the coal loop is not fully electrified, but it's good. It got us in here a little early. We got this bridge built pretty shortly. One of the higher priorities to some degree will be to get that train track going over there and get those buildings built. Again, I kind of want to ramp up our steel production before we do that. And also probably want to, sort of get closer to the point we've got this clothing going. We should be very close to at least getting it semi-started. And then we also have Moose Gal over here, which is really, if we get some electric, we got most of this electric all done. Yeah, I think that one of the next episodes may be, we could start building houses. We could, look, that guy's doing nothing. So that means the farm is going. You know what? I think I'm even going to do, of course, the one I picked. That road wasn't built. So we'll get that road built as well. But Yeah, I think I mean, the other problem we have too is that we don't have a lot of people. Yeah, this has power, so we get a fuel cistern up to that. We should have some extras. I hope. Yep. Come here. Oops, I probably could have. So most of Moscow is going to go to GW, Gateway Love Distribution, which is right over here. And I believe, yep, I can go to there. Get some fuel and bring it to here. There. Good. So we'll have fuel out here when we're ready to go. Probably should well, no, we don't really need a lot of fuel out here because we have all of this. This is going to be our trolley long distance experiment. So I know they call trams. This is what brought up the whole discussion, was this idea. This is a trolley. It is also the same thing in English as a tram. By English, I mean British English. It's, if this had railroads in it on the road, it would still be a trolley in America. That's exactly what a trolley is a train that, small train that carries passengers typically. Though I guess a trolley could maybe carry other things, but I've never seen that. Even if it had railroad tracks in here, that would still be a trolley. Does that make sense? And a tram would never go on this line here because that's a heavy rail line. Might be an entirely different gauge, but it's just, this track is far more expensive to build because it's got to be heavier duty for heavy rail trains. And typically tram tracks in America, which we don't say the word tram too much, trolley tracks are a much, much lighter design of rail, right? It's not high speed, it's not heavy rail, it's not even light rail. It's like super light rail in a sense. But anyway, enough of that debate. It's not even really a debate. It's just more of a everybody understanding each other's uses of different words. And when you have different people speaking different languages that use a very similar word in a different way, it's gets more the confusing for all of us. But as long as we all understand each other, that's the point. So there we go. So I think that's enough of a summary. I think I hit all the points. And let me know in particular if you have comments on these train tracks. And I know it seems like they're getting complex, and expect me to do some fine tuning. There's, some of these things won't need to be the way they are, and they were done for construction. Like if I didn't have this attached to that, then I couldn't get up here and work on this line up here, right? So there's some things along those lines. Now what are we doing here? Oh, you're just unloading. That's another thing somebody suggested, is that I didn't have to unload all of this. I mean, I could just unload, say, 40%. Now, I don't know that I want to do that. Let's go take a look real quick. All right, one last thing. That's right. Who made that suggestion? I think Alan made that suggestion that we, GW. So what we could do is take a look in here and see, we don't have any bitumen, but we have fuel. So maybe we go and put this guy back up, right? And then we get our bitumen train that's sitting right there, right? And we tell him, instead of shutting this off entirely, try to find a good percentage. Now, I think the problem with bitumen is going to depend on how much we use. And then the other issue is, sometimes we use a lot, sometimes we use a little. Then I'm opening up new depots at times, and that causes issues as well. So let's take a look here. Yeah, see, we have plenty of bitumen in this is our domestic supply here and here, domestic fuel supply. And this would be the export. So we just don't have any for export, but we have plenty for internal. So it's not, these tanks being full here, I mean, we're not taking full advantage of the money, right? So it means we might even want to put another train on there, though when I did that, we kind of started running out of fuel. So it's all right. We don't have to make every bit of money. As long as we're making money, we're doing quite well. Like by the time I turn around to buy more trains, it seems like I've been pretty good shape with with the money. The money is not as much as it seems. Our inflation. Let's see what, just for you guys that have been following, steel is, if we were to sell it, is close to $40,000. I'm sorry, if we were to buy it, 39,000 rubles to buy a ton of steel. So when you consider the inflation, having 161 million is not as great as it seems in a sense. It's just like way over inflated at that point. It's like Venezuelan money or something, something along those lines. So in any event, yeah, here we go. Back at old Revergrad. I'm going to say goodbye. If you have any questions about the summary or something you want to see a little bit more in depth, we didn't really get into the economy this time. That's okay. We can get into the economy next time. So, all right, guys. Well, I hope you guys are enjoying the series. We are still making progress. Our lag has gone away, so it's enjoyable once again to play it. So hats off to the devs for getting rid of that problem because, yeah, so if you did have an old map that you couldn't play, maybe give it another shot if it got too big and out of control for you. So anyway, have a good day. Have a good weekend. Take care. Bye-bye.